Hey, GLP-1 plus sides community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help. Our support and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things. Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise." That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Dr. Myra, tell us all about you.
It's nice to meet you guys again
Of course.
live. I was on here a couple months ago, but thanks for bringing me back.
Yeah.
I run Join Mochi, which is telehealth obesity medicine practice. So.
Yes. Great. We're so excited to have you. And Dr. Rosen, tell us about you.
So great to be back with you ladies. I am Dr. Daniel Rosen. I am a bariatric surgeon. I've been helping people manage and control their obesity and diabetes for almost 20 years now, believe it or not. And just real happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Ripley, tell us about you.
Yeah, thanks
plus sides. You haven't been here yet.
Nope, haven't been here. Thanks for the Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Dr. Adam Ripley. I'm a PharmD pharmacist with Aquita Pharmacy. We do sterile and non-sterile compounding in all 50 states. And jumping on with Dr. Myra, the consulting pharmacist with Mochi, advising on pretty much everything pharmacy, from oversights to compounds to regulation to whatever questions come up.
Dr. Rosen, you have had a couple of videos, I know, specifically about what GLP-1s are and how they work. Could you give us a general overview to start, and then we'll dig in a little bit deeper?
For sure. So GLP-1s are a class of hormones that are released physiologically in the end of the intestines. They are a evolutionary adaptation to prevent people from losing calories. Calories historically, evolutionarily, were at a premium and they were hard to come by. And when you would get a large calorie load, there would be a big kill or something like that, and you would have all this food to eat. And of course, there's no refrigeration, so you would eat as much as you can, but you can overwhelm the GI tract in terms of processing and absorbing those nutrients and calories. So the intestines developed the trick to stop you from eating once you've hit that limit of overwhelming the system from a metabolic perspective. So as food reaches the end of the intestines, special cells called L cells produce GLP-1. And that GLP-1 enters the bloodstream and starts to impact both the brain and the rest of the GI tract. For the GI tract, it slows things down. to prevent things from sort of being pushed through. And in your brain, it can create a sensation of being like so full, if you eat anything else, you'll vomit.
Yeah.
You know, that's totally a brain creation. It's a fallacy. It's a myth. Joey Chestnut, the hot dog eating champion,
Yeah.
says fullness is a state of mind to be pushed through.
Whew.
Wow.
And that couldn't be more true, because
So
it's just
true.
the brain tricking you into thinking like there's food here. There's no food there.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the way your brain gets your mouth to stop having more food put into it.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
another term for it is the ileal brake, because the end of the intestines is the ileum. And GLP-1 eventually was identified, actually following bariatric surgery research, because it was these rapid fullness and improvement in diabetes that people saw after gastric bypass before they even lost any weight, totally independent of weight loss. Because when you reroute the intestines, the food sort of gets to the end really quick, because it's starting in the middle instead of starting at the beginning. And they identified these hormones that were spiked called GLP-1. And then, of course, the pharmaceutical companies came in and began to synthesize and produce them, market them, and sell them.
Of course.
And it's a revolution. We never saw weight loss medications like the GLP-1 class of medications, originally targeted at diabetes management and with weight loss as a side effect. And as these medications have gone through different iterations, they have gotten better and better, I think, specifically from a weight loss perspective. And it seems that the weight loss achieved for non-diabetics can be even greater than what we're seeing for diabetics.
Yeah.
And now they've been, of course, branded and marketed directly as an obesity treatment.
We know that there are some people, and people who are watching probably do too, that are unable to get their medication either because of accessibility or affordability. And there are what we call compound options. Now, there's a lot of stuff about what is a compound and what's it made of, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But if you could just give us like a general answer, maybe we start with Dr. Adam Ripley. If you could tell us, like, what is a compound medication?
So a compound drug, or a compound for short, is basically where you put two things together and you make something new out of it. It's really about that simple, or two or more things. I mean, you can take two things, or you can take 3 or 4 or 5 drugs and put them together, and you make a compounded drug product in that fashion. So it's really just it pretty much is that simple, just bringing those things together and creating something new.
Food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP-1s through Row is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Row. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're gonna go do together.
Why are compounds so much cheaper? And also adding into that, how cheap is too cheap? And where should we look for these red flags? So that's a good one to think of. And I would assume maybe Dr. Ripley, Dr. Myra, or any one of you, but I would assume Dr. Ripley, you probably have the most thorough answers there.
Well, it's kind of has a lot of layers to it, I guess. You kind of look at why, maybe backing up a little bit and maybe thinking about why are the pharmaceutical products so expensive, maybe not why the compounded ones are so cheap, but maybe backing up a little bit and looking from the pharmaceutical product. In general, pharmaceutical companies apply for and get a patent on a medication, and that is X number of years long, 10, 15, 20, depending on the patent and how they, when they get it and that kind of thing. And basically, we have a free market, and they can charge what they want to based on the demand that's out there. A lot of times, what insurance companies will pay for it, what the population will pay for it. They back in a lot of their development costs over the years, a lot of their research, a lot of their developments that might not have gotten to the market. A lot of those things are layered in and rolled into the cost of a drug. And then they've got what they would say, let's say maybe once the patent is out there, they might have maybe a 10-year window. They would call it a small window to recoup a lot of that investment that they've put in. So they would argue that we're paying for the research and we're recouping our costs and we're making a profit so that we can kick it down the road for the next big thing to come out. So
right.
A lot of free market forces, a lot of research, a lot of things like that on why like the pharmaceutical products are so expensive. So on the flip side, when you look at a compounded product, compounding pharmacies don't have that layer or extra layers of research and years of overhead costs and research and development rolled in. Compounding pharmacies, for the most part, really base their pricing on what the material costs, what their overhead is, what the employees' time, pharmacists, technicians, employee time, cost of goods, cost of compliance, a really smaller overhead number when you start looking at an overall product piece. So for the most part, a lot of the drug products themselves aren't that expensive. A lot of it is in the labor of putting it together, the compliance to make sure that it's safe, it's accurate. And then, so that's I think where you get a lot of the cost and the price difference between, say, something that's compounded and then a larger pharmaceutical brand name product that's on the market today.
Gotcha. And so what would be, I guess, maybe a red flag of how cheap would too cheap be?
If you hear someone saying $100, like, is that scary?
Well, I think
that would,
probably the same old adage. If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Perfect. Yep.
So if it's somebody's advertising it for $30 or $90, or if you think it's too good to be true, there's probably something behind it. There's more to that story. So if you think it's too cheap, you're probably right. It probably is too cheap.
Yeah.
It's hard to put a hard number on it, but I think you got to put that.
Yeah,
you got to have the smell test, I think.
What I'm seeing on TikTok with some of our users is that the reconstitution and the safety of doing it at home. Is it safe to do it? I know, right? This is for all you all cutting on. Yeah, just chime in. Is it safe to do it at home? Is it? And also,
I have a major problem with this.
All right, you get to answer it.
I'm just going to jump in on this one because, this is crazy to me.
You're just listening. You could hear Dr.
The
Rosen
notion of a patient taking a powdered version of a medication and doing their own dilution in order to come up with potentially the recommended concentration, presuming they don't screw this up. And we have patients, I'm sure Dr. Myra would agree with me, we have patients that make dosing mistakes all the time. You have patients that get sent the wrong medication, so they give themselves a 15 milligram dose instead of a 2.5 milligram dose, and they're vomiting for 3 days, need to be in the emergency room for hydration. And that's without them mixing it. You have patients who dose themselves, instead of 50 milligrams, they dose themselves 0.5 milligrams, or instead of 50 units, they dose themselves 0.5 units because 50 units is 0.5 ml. So they may give themselves like the tiniest sliver of medication in a insulin syringe and then wonder why it isn't working.
Yeah.
And so that's without mixing it themselves. So the idea that a patient would be injecting sterile water or sodium chloride into a vial of powder and mixing it up, that's a complicated thing for me to do myself. And that's something I would do, let's say, for Botox. Botox comes in a powdered form and has to be reconstituted in the doctor's office. I think it's really dangerous for patients to be their own pharmacist, in essence.
Yeah.
And do that diluting. I think it will either result in a number of people getting too little medication or a number of people getting too much medication.
What about the sterility of it? Like, what in terms of like doing it at home? I've heard different things. I'm not sure if that's valid, but
presuming that they're providing a vial of sterile saline or sterile water, and they, and are using a sterile syringe, I don't think the sterility is as big of an issue. I just think the possibility of errors is much higher. And I think that it speaks to, like, if you're getting a vial of just powder, and I know people do it, but I don't know who does it. So if someone does do this and they want to chime in, I'm perfectly happy to hear that perspective. But it speaks to a system that isn't really being thought out from a patient-friendly perspective. I think these medications should be provided individually, meaning like your name should be on the vial. And your dose should be on the vial, and the concentration of that medication in milligrams per ml should be on that vial, and the dosing instructions 0.5 ml subcutaneously weekly should be on the vial. And if you're not getting all those things, then I think you need to look at who's providing your stuff and have a high degree of suspicion and concern.
So it should be like what it is when you go to the pharmacy and you have a script, because all those things are usually on your script, right? Is your name,
right?
The ID and all of those things you just mentioned.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Roe. Roe helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Roe.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on The Plus Side, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Side's podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to The Plus Side's Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.